Okay, it is 6 o'clock and we have all of our panelists present. And at this time, I would like to welcome our registered attendees and those viewing the live stream to the second of two public input sessions on proposed route changes with Charlottesville Area Transit. Today's panelists include representatives from Charlottesville Area Transit, Kinetics Transportation Group, and Kimley Horn. My name is Joe Rice with the City Communications Office. We are hosting this Zoom webinar, and I'll be moderating today's Q&A between our panelists and the public. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Kyle Irvin, CAT's marketing coordinator, for panelist introductions. Kyle.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Before we start, I'd like to thank, first of all, the City of Charlottesville Communications Department for hosting our second series of public meetings, and Kinetics Transportation Group and Kimley Horn for making this opportunity possible. Whenever a transit agency makes changes to its system, it's imperative that you guys, the viewers, are able to share your input, to share your voice. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with us. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We'll go straight down the line and start with Jawan Lee.
Hi, my name is Jawan Lee. I'm the Assistant Director of Operations for Charlottesville Area Transit.
Ben Chambers, if you want to go ahead and go.
All right. I'm Ben Chambers. I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm a transportation planner out of Richmond, supporting CAT on this effort.
Jim.
Yes, hi there. My name is Jim Baker. I'm with Kinetics Transportation Group, and we're also one of the consultants supporting CAT on this project.
And my name is Garland Williams. I'm the Director of Transit for here at CAT. Part of what we're doing today is making sure that we do our federal requirements. FTA requires, Federal Transit Administration requires the transit agencies, when they make major adjustments to their schedules, get public input. It's not just a good thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And part of what we're trying to do is make sure that the changes that we're suggesting and proposing are seen as positives, because we're trying to improve this system. Over the last few years, CAT has been declining in ridership. This is a way for us to potentially stem that decline in ridership and put a positive spin on it and allow us to build in a floor base and build from there. So what we have done is we hired Ben Chambers with Kimley Horn and Jim Baker with Kinetics Transportation Group out of Atlanta. And we took a hard look at our system through a cooperative agreement with the state. System optimization plan is what it's called. This allows us to do some changes to the system. This is not supposed to be the end all to be all. This is designed for us to, like I said, stem the tide of the decline of ridership. The region is doing a regional vision plan that will look at the system in a sense as if you didn't have a system at all, and how would you build out your optimal system. This is not that plan. This is designed to take advantage of the state funding model. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll get Ben to talk about that at the end of the presentation, but also allow us to build on top of a really productive system that we have in place here. With that, we're going to start the presentation, and Jim Baker is going to go and walk us through the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Garland. So yes, we did want to walk through the proposed service changes and get feedback tonight. Okay, so this is the what the CAT network as it currently stands. Pre-COVID, CAT was running 13 routes, generally 6 to midnight, with some limited Sunday service. And generally about 62,500 people were within a quarter mile of a CAT bus stop. When COVID hit, CAT, just like every other transit agency in the country, scaled back the service in response to COVID. One of the things CAT did is they did not change any of their service coverage. Those 62,500 people still had access to some level of transit service, but service was reduced on some routes. Evening service was ended earlier, and Sunday service was eliminated to provide for a cleaning day. So that's the service that's currently in place right now. As Garland mentioned earlier, ridership has been, prior to COVID, on a downward trajectory. 15% reduction in ridership over the past 5 years, which means service productivity. The number of people on the buses for every hour that a bus is out on the streets has also been declining. So when Garland reached out to us and his team there, we started by talking about just what are some of the key objectives that we want to try to accomplish here. One, there's a couple of areas where there's a desire to put some new service out. One was South First Street. The other was to the center on Rio Road there. And then also just to get Sunday service back up to pre-pandemic levels or better, get the evening service back on the routes, and then to also expand opportunities where people have access to 30-minute or better service. So we identified some areas where we wanted to try to get 30-minute or better service frequencies. And then there were a few routes that were operating at 70-minute frequencies. In other words, a bus would be coming by a stop once every 70 minutes. We wanted to make that no worse than 60 minutes. That would also help facilitate transfers between routes at the downtown transit station if we were able to accomplish that. And then finally, the free trolley is such an important part of the CAT service. That frequency was reduced during COVID. We wanted to get that back up to 15 minutes. So with those objectives in mind, and then we collected a whole lot of ridership data as well this last summer there, we were able to start to put together some ideas there for potential service improvements. So we're going to go through these improvements route by route, but we just kind of wanted to highlight a few things here. And the first is that you're going to see that there's some improved service connectivity between the UVA campus and hospital and the US 29 corridor. You're going to see there's a new proposed crosstown route, so someone can get from South Charlottesville up to that US 29 corridor without having to go downtown and transfer. You're going to see more routes with 30-minute or better frequencies in the network and expanded weekend coverage. You're going to see some new coverage where service doesn't exist today, both in the city and in the county. Not only the ones I just mentioned to the center on Rio Road and First Street South, but also some new service along Mill Creek Drive and to Piedmont Virginia Community College. So those are some of the things you're going to see here in a few minutes. Just looking at what's accomplished with this new network, just on kind of a system level basis, there is a little bit of improvement in terms of population accessibility. The number of people that are within a quarter mile of a stop increases by 2% on weekdays and 5% on Saturdays and 10% on Sundays. But most importantly, I think where you'll see the dramatic improvements are the number of people that have access to 30-minute or better weekday service. In other words, they're within a quarter mile of a route that's operating at least every 30 minutes. And that accessibility improvement improved to 20% over today with the overall population. So what we'd like to do next is just kind of go through route by route what the proposed changes are, provide some highlights as to what those changes are. And the first one, we're just going to start with Route 1, where we're not really proposing any significant changes to the alignment of this route, but the biggest change to this route is it currently only operates Mondays through Fridays. So we're proposing that it also operate on Saturday. So these are, folks along this route will now have access to Saturday service that they currently do not have. Route 2, we're proposing some significant changes to this route. Currently, it operates in a big one-way loop down Ridge Street and back, or 5th Street, excuse me, and then back up Avon Street to downtown. And what we're proposing is having 2-direction service on Avon Street. So you have 30-minute service going up and down Avon Street with every other route branching, then one going through 5th Street Station and the Willoughby Shopping Center, and the other one providing new service into the county along Mill Creek drive to Piedmont Virginia Community College. So, we're getting that bidirectional service. We're getting 30-minute service frequencies, bidirectional service on Avon Street, prior to that split. And then Route 3 is a route that operates on 5th Street. Currently, it operates just 30-minute frequencies in the morning and afternoon peaks, but 60-minute frequencies in the midday. It's such a, I think, an important corridor there. We wanted to get that operating at 30-minute service all day long on weekdays. So it's, from, through the morning and midday and afternoon peak periods, it's operating at 30-minute frequencies. This is also another route that currently does not operate on Sundays. We're proposing that it does operate on Sundays. So improve that weekend accessibility for people that live along this route. Now, the 3 also has an eastern leg that operates, over, in the Belmont area there, and we're leaving that route, or that part of the route as is. It'll continue to operate at a 60-minute frequencies, weekdays and Saturdays. So operating the same days of the week as it currently does. And then Route 4. This is a route from Willoughby Shopping Center. It deviates around the UVA hospital and then ends up at the downtown transit station. No changes proposed to the alignment. Just it would operate at its current COVID level 60-minute service frequencies, weekdays and Saturdays. And then Route 5. This is one of the higher ridership routes in the CAT system, and it currently operates from Barracks Road up to Fashion Square Mall, and then it continues on north to the Walmart. Well, you're going to see in a minute on the Route 7, we're swapping the northern ends, if you will, where the Route 7 is going to go to the Walmart, and this one will end at Fashion Square. So this kind of allowed us to do something different at the southern end of Route 5, where we're extending it through new areas, through the UVA campus, ending up at the UVA hospital there. So it's providing that additional connectivity from UVA and the UVA hospital up to Barracks Road. And it would also be operating then at 30-minute frequencies, weekdays and Saturdays. And then Route 6 is modified to be a 2-direction service, downtown transit station, providing that service along 1st Street South that was requested to Willoughby Shopping Center at a 60-minute frequencies, weekdays and Saturdays. Route 7, one of the major workhorses, the second highest ridership route of the CAT system. This is the one where I mentioned just a minute ago. We're extending this up, or proposing to extend it up from Fashion Square Mall up to Walmart. The rest of the alignment is pretty much stays as is. It would operate at 30-minute frequencies along the entire alignment, but we would proposing that supplemental service be provided between the downtown transit station and Barracks Road Shopping Center during those high demand ridership demand periods, where you would have this route would be operating every 15 minutes, between those 2 locations. So what this provides today is, right now, if you're trying to get to the Walmart from downtown, today you would have to ride this route up to Fashion Square and transfer to the Route 5. With this proposed change, you have no transfers. You're able to stay on the same bus to continue on up to Walmart. And this route would also operate 7 days a week as well. And then Route 8, currently it runs to the downtown transit station. This is a route where we wanted to see if we could provide some new crosstown service. So people on the south part of Charlottesville could get up to the US 29 corridor without having to transfer downtown. So you see this route, starting at Willoughby, going up 5th Street, going through the UVA hospital to up Barracks Road and ending up at the shops at Stonefield. So it would also be operating 6 days a week, 60-minute frequencies. Route 9 is another route that's where we have some fairly significant service proposals here, where it would be running from downtown, stopping at the Y, both directions, but then continuing on up Hillsdale to Fashion Square Mall. So it's providing that additional service and that the Route 7 does along Hillsdale along Fashion Square, and just another way to get from that Fashion Square area to downtown. And it would be operating at 60-minute frequencies 6 days a week. Then Route 10, this route provides service out along Richmond Road. Presently, it operates through the Pantops Shopping Center only in the outbound direction. And it makes a big, large one direction loop at the end of line. So what we've proposed here is that it would operate through Pantops in both directions. So if you're going out to the grocery store at Pantops, you don't have to ride around the whole route just to come back downtown. You'll be able to catch it from Pantops for the inbound direction. And then you also eliminate that big one direction loop at the end of line. It currently also operates at 60-minute frequencies. So what we're suggesting here is that it operate at 30-minute frequencies. So, doubling the level of service that people see in this corridor today. And then also this route currently does not operate on Sundays. So we're proposing that Sunday service be added as well. So there's access to the shopping, access to the employment 7 days a week out in this corridor. Route 11, this is a route that suggested some modifications where it would serve the center on Ryle Road, the center at Belvedere. Unfortunately, just because of the configuration there at Belvedere and Ryle Road, there's no traffic signal there. So we'd be serving that in the northbound direction. And then people would need to just, still be able to ride that bus at the short distance to Fashion Square, where it would turn around and come down to the downtown transit station. But from a safety standpoint, we're just not able to provide that service in both directions, as busy as that road is without a signal at this time. And then last is the trolley. The trolley is CAT's highest ridership route, and it was service frequencies were reduced in response to COVID on this. So the main thing on this route is just to get it back at that 15-minute frequencies that it used to run at pre-COVID, and it's also been just having this route continue to run through the University of Virginia campus on McCormick Road as well. So that's kind of a real brief walkthrough of all the specific changes for each route. And I guess I'll ask Garland if you'd like to speak to the next steps.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So part of what we're going to do now is basically, I'm going to do a quick recap before I go through the next steps. It's important to note that the proposals that are before everybody restores the service that we had pre-COVID. So that is a big improvement back for the adjustments that we're proposing. We're also looking at improving service, making almost the majority of our routes, 6 of them, 30 minutes or better. That's a marked improvement from where we were before. Also expand service in the city and the county, bringing in new sections, really pulling in the high school, Monticello High School in the county. That's a big improvement, providing dual access, dual routes that now connects with PVCC, making additional service on Saturdays and Sundays for our coverage areas, allowing people to get to and from work, more of our routes on the weekends, and really being able to make some adjustments to provide more one-seat, single-seat rides without having to transfer to activity center. That's big, a marked improvement from where we are. So the next steps for us would be, we've got budget authority from the jurisdictions, the city and the county. Next, we need to go back and basically inform them about the changes that are proposed or the adjustments that we're getting the feedback as a part of these public meetings. The major step that we have to do is conduct a Title VI analysis to determine if there are any adverse service impacts to the minority or low income population. That's key to making sure that we don't do anything that harms individuals that need our services. We finished up the 2 public meetings. We're gonna look at bus stop locations, and that process has already started. Juwan has been working with our construction guy, and we're identifying potential locations for new stops. And behind the scenes, Jim and the team and Juwan have already been working on preparing service schedules, so we'll be able to get that out to our drivers and the public about new times and schedules. So that's a lot of work that has to continue to be done before we can actually launch this. Tentatively, we're looking at first, second week in September, unless there's major pushback from service changes. That's the kind of tentative schedule that we've kind of outlined. And with that, we're going to open it up, Kyle, for feedback from the public.
All right, Joe, if you would like to start the feedback process.
Great, thanks, Kyle, and thank you all. And yeah, at this time, if you have questions for our panelists, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're joining us by phone, *9. And we have one hand raised currently. That's from Jane Colony Mills. And Jane, you're on with our panelists.
Thank you. Can unmute?
We got you. We can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I am the executive director of Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry. We are located down Lambs Road at the intersection of Hydraulic and Lambs, which is Whitewood on the other side. So we're next to Albemarle High School. And we serve probably 25 to 30% of Charlottesville's population. But if you don't have a vehicle, they can't get to us. I met with the previous director of CAT before Mr. Williams joined, and he thought perhaps we could put a bus stop closer than the current bus stop, which is at the intersection of Georgetown and Hydraulic, which is a half-mile away. And nothing ever came to fruition. So I'm joining just to kind of express again how wonderful it would be to possibly get a stop off of Route 5. And I know that it doesn't fit into the current configuration, but to get a stop at least at the at Whitewood and Hydraulic, so people could access our services if they don't have transportation. I was out doing registration today, and there are just numerous people who have to catch rides or figure out other ways of accessing our services because they can't get here on public transport. Thank you for this opportunity.
Can you say that the street intersection one more time for me?
That was Hydraulic in Whitewood.
Whitewood, thank you.
Okay, and our next question comes from Jameer Smith. Jameer, you're on with the panelists. You can unmute.
Hi, I had a couple of different comments based on the changes. I was looking at the Route 3, and I was wondering if, since it's especially going to be split and it's going to be a 30-minute service, if there was a possibility for expanded service for the neighborhoods that are south of the city. And I say this mainly because I know that the 3 is currently running a detour to access Southwood via Country Green and Stagecoach Roads, as well as Oak Hill Drive. So I was wondering, since there is like a lot of apartment complexes and houses and a lot of like population bases in that area, if there could be a possible like addition of service like permanently to that. Also, I was looking at the Route 5, and I like the idea of transit redundancy, kind of accessing the health system and everything, especially even with School of Data Science coming up soon on Ivy Road. But I was wondering if with the 7 shuttle or the AM peak service, since that would be a quicker kind of route to the health system and Central Grounds, if you think that would possibly cannibalize some of the ridership on that southern extension, even with the university as well, whenever that they come back to their typically 10-minute service, if that was something that would be taken into consideration. And the last thing I want to note, I know from the May presentation, some people that might have been watching the progress for a while, some of the additional improvements that you guys didn't include in this one, with the addition of 30-minute service on like the 6 and the 8, and like all day frequent 15-minute service on the 7. I was wondering if that would, like, if there was a timeline on when those additions would be added. Is that based on the additional funding from the city and the county for the revenue hours, future ridership trends after these changes are installed, the new fleet that is planned to come in the next couple of years, or a combination of all of those? So yeah, a lot of notes. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, great questions, great comments. So thank you for taking a look at our system adjustments. So let's start with, we kind of outlined your last question first, or your last comment first. So we outlined what we think are the fundamental components to kind of stop the decline in our ridership, and build a kind of a new base. And then we identify potential areas where we know if we have additional funding, that these are already targeted key areas, and you mentioned some of them, to expand service or increase the frequencies. So we're already putting everybody on notice, hopefully, that there's a planning effort that's going on, which is a requirement for us. And when we get additional funding, there are already earmarked potential areas for us to expand or increase our service to that area. So that was kind of what we're kind of laying out. That is not stopping individuals for asking for or requesting additional service areas. So we're constantly looking to improve our system. So we're constantly looking for feedback. The adjustments that we're kind of all going through here are, it's a balance, because we really, we have a finite budget. We're trying to be good stewards of the public dollar, and we're trying to make the adjustments as we possibly can. Now, the original about we're on a detour correct now. I know the team is taking notes, and we're going to go back. We're getting all of the feedback from all of these meetings, and we've gotten multiple requests for smaller adjustments or bigger adjustments on other routes. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to leave the comment areas open, and we're going to continue as a group looking at seeing where we can make tweaks that don't have a degradation on our system, but allow us to continue to move forward and be productive as we possibly can. Because ultimately, there's a funding mechanism, and it's designed around getting as much ridership as we possibly can. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, whether Ben and Warner wanted to kind of talk about that for us real quick, but that's ultimately kind of what we're trying to get done.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the main goal of this system optimization plan, is bring back the ridership as we come back from COVID. And one of the main reasons you do that is because of the funding. So CAT is run on funding from federal sources, state sources, local sources, and out of those, the state sources are heavily dependent on a formula that looks at ridership. And it's not just, is CAT's ridership up or down? It's what's CAT's ridership doing in comparison with everybody else in the state. So if there's another agency that has been doing well over the past several years and has been increasing their ridership, they're going to be a lot more competitive for statewide funding than CAT is, who has had declining ridership over the past several years. If we can turn that around, then CAT will become more competitive for state funding, and then you could potentially leverage that funding for federal and local dollars to make those improvements that just can't be afforded right now.
Excellent, excellent, Ben. Thank you. I think I talk to my team all the time and saying, if you're not growing, you're by essence, because everybody around you is growing, then you're actually shrinking. So that really nails home the point that we're trying to make these adjustments to stay up with our peers, and then potentially surpass them. But we'll take into we'll take all your comments and really have a Q&A that we'll release on our website that allow us to give you feedback on the points.
Great. And our next question comes from Kath Welch. Kath, you're on with the panelists. Kath, if you can hear us, you can unmute. There you go.
Hear me. I have a couple of questions. One is that back in the day when the Route 7 continued on north of Fashion Square, there was a stop at Albemarle Square, and I'm wondering if that will be reinstated. I've been around longer than probably most of you people, so it's historical.
What I can say about that location is the property owner actually asked us to leave the property, and so until they invite us back in, we will not be able to serve the property directly.
Okay, that sounds like the same old story. The other thing I was wondering about is I'm just beginning to ride again after COVID, and I don't find that the app is showing real-time arrivals. Am I just not figuring out what's going on? Because that real-time arrival information to me is critical for people being able to use the service, in particular when you have a 60-minute route. You want to at least know whether you've missed the bus. Is it? And I also understand you're going to have a new one in September, and I looked at that and couldn't make that one do anything either.
So we have been in constant contact with our AVL provider that gives us our updates for our buses. There's been some discussions. I know we have talked about it being real time, but it's actually predictive, which means it looks at the schedule and tries to predict whether the bus is going to be on. We are trying to move to real time. That is a funding request that we'll be working with the state over the next year or so to put in a request to change our model from predictive to real time on our apps. There's a pretty hefty capital expense to do so. Not going into too much detail, but there's a wireless requirement that, if you really want to be real time, you almost signing every bus up a lot like a cell phone. So you get real data that's printing out every single minute. So that's an expense, a capital expense, and then an ongoing expense that we have to figure out how to fund. But we are hoping the adjustments in the app schedule updates will hopefully shake out some of the quirks that are in there now. So hopefully in the next month or so, you should see it operate a little better.
Does that mean that I guess predictive is what I was really referring to, because real time, that's a really harder problem, but just to know, have a sense of within a few minutes when the bus is going to be there or whether it has already left. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Jawan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. We are transitioning our apps to our vendors apps. So if you go to the App Store and look for ETA Spot, SPOT, then that'll be the new app that currently works. And the original app we have been using will be ceased to exist as of September 4th. But the new app should work now. I've been using it and I know it works. So please switch over to that.
And our next question comes from Joyce Hillstrom. Joyce, you're on with our panelists. You can go ahead and unmute.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you. I couldn't see the maps well enough to know, is there no bus service now to the health department or that neighborhood at all?
There is. The Route 9 will continue to serve Rose Hill.
Oh, okay. And this is the 5th meeting like this that I've been to, but the first one where you tell us ahead of time you've already made most of your decisions. But this is the 5th time that's the first time I've made this request. Is there never going to be a plan to have a bus that goes out to Barracks West again like it used to, or near Barracks West to Colonnades, where there are thousands of people that live in Barracks West?
Potentially looking at all kinds of adjustments. And I would say that the region itself is looking at a regional vision plan. And that's probably the most appropriate place to have that conversation as we look at making adjustments, just not to CAT, but potentially John or to the university system as we look at, how do we work better together in a more cohesive manner. So I believe that, it is on my radar, is on my team's radar. It's a process that would have to go through and have to be funded by the jurisdictions to allow us to be able to pay for it and service that area. But it's definitely on our list as a target area.
Well, it used to have they used to have a bus, and so it's been at least like 12, 13 years since it quit. And every year every time they change routes, you say you think somebody's thinking about it, but it's not going to be a CAT service. It might be some other system that eventually goes back out there.
And our next question is from Susan Cruz. Susan, you're on with the panelists.
Hi, good evening. Nice. I think Juwan wins the background award with the buses driving behind him. So very nice touch. I like it very much. So my name is Susan Cruz. I'm the executive director of the Community Climate Collaborative. Transit is a critical climate solution as our community strives to reduce our emissions by 45% by 2030 and ultimately achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Reaching these objectives will require the thoughtful planning like you're doing now on route design, system improvement, and will also require, we know, substantial funding increases to increase our fleets, improve our bus stops, modernize our transit systems to move toward a clean energy future. So C3 is grateful for the work that CAT is already doing to move us in this direction, including providing fare-free service, moving routes to better than 30-minute frequency, and reducing route times for other routes. These are all critical solutions that you're implementing. And so we applaud you for the changes you are making now. This spring, C3 conducted community surveys and several focus groups to get feedback on improvements the community would like to see to help you get those ridership numbers up. So in addition to what you're already doing, we would recommend making fare-free permanent going forward, setting a goal as an agency to double our ridership by 2024. And we hope the city and county can join you in that and help support those goals with funding. To have no route frequencies greater than 30 minutes, to move swiftly, as I know you're doing bus stop surveys, but to move swiftly to improve safety at bus stops through pedestrian and bike-friendly infrastructure. And finally, I just want to note that this is a great opportunity for a public comment. We would love to see a lot more opportunities like this, including ones for Spanish speakers, because I think that is a particular challenge in a community that is very dependent on CAT services, and we'd love to see that going forward. So thank you for the work you're doing. You're climate leaders in my mind, and we appreciate our transit system, and we want to see it grow. So thanks for what you're doing. We just need more of it.
And thank you, Susan. And next up, we have Carlos Armengol. Carlos, you're on with our panelists. Please unmute.
Thank you very much. I am a resident of Redfields, which is off of Old Lynchburg, one of the neighborhoods. And I wanted to echo some of the sentiments expressed earlier. I'll note that Route 3 comes down 5th Street Extended and passes the county office building, where that street then turns into Old Lynchburg. And between the county office building and the entrance to Southwood, or the previous entrance to Southwood before the detour, there is no neighborhood. There are no houses, and there are no neighborhoods. And it would be very easy to include some of the other neighborhoods in that area that are growing, and there are more being built. And that would be done very easily and effectively by detouring that route onto Country Green and taking it up past Sunset Avenue Extended and then back onto Old Lynchburg Road. It would be very easy to do that at little expense, and it would make it a much quicker commute or walk for the folks in the outlying neighborhoods and also for the Region 10 offices, which are right there on Old Lynchburg Road, and all the other new neighborhoods that are coming up. And that's all I wanted to say. And then thank you very much for the meeting. I appreciate the time that you guys are taking. I myself bike to work, but on some of the very hot and very cold days, it would be nice to catch the bus. Thank you very much again.
And next we have Peter Thompson. Peter, you are now on with the panelists. You may unmute.
Sound check, you hear me okay?
We can.
Thank you. I am Peter Thompson. I'm the Executive Director at the Center at Belvedere. First, I want to echo everything Susan Cruz mentioned. The Center is a proud member of the Community Climate Collaborative, and I appreciate her emphasis on the environmental impacts and the need for equity in our community and how this impacts that work. So thank you, Susan and C3 for that. I'm here today to speak in favor of the amendment of Route 11 to come and serve the Center of Belvedere, at least one direction. No surprise as I see Garland smiling. The center has a 61-year history in serving our community. Communities focused on providing the keys for healthy aging and open to all, particularly with our new center at Belvedere that opened last year. The city has sought to have this service ever since Route 11 was developed. The center at bought the parcel in Belvedere neighborhood just about the same time. And we've been looking forward since we opened just about a year ago in June of 2020 to get this service, understanding that COVID certainly delayed that. Older adults, the senior population in Charlottesville and Albemarle is the biggest demographic issue our community faces. It's the biggest growing demographic. There's a growing number of seniors who either cannot drive for economic reasons, for health reasons, or choosing reasons for environmental purposes as other reasons. The city invested in building the Center at Belvedere. They made a capital investment, and in part, our contract, our gift agreement actually includes an expectation that CAT indeed would be serving the Center at Belvedere. We invested tens of thousands of dollars of community philanthropy that we raised to prepare our parking lot to accommodate the CAT buses as well. So our center and our stakeholders look forward to Route 11 coming to serve the Center at Belvedere. At least in one direction, and we look forward longer term to figuring out a way to get it to serve in both directions to be that much more user friendly. So thank you all for your work and the opportunity to speak on behalf of this amendment to serve the older adults and Center at Belvedere.
And next we have Kathleen Glenn Matthews. Kathleen, you're on with the panelists.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think that was my fault, Kathleen. I think I booted you out. Didn't give you one more chance to speak. And now you can.
Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Great. Great. I just wanted to thank Mr. Williams and Mr. Lee for coming in person to visit our sites that are undergoing redevelopment with the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority. I'm the Deputy Executive Director, and I was very grateful for them to come out and walk the sites with us and see what our increasing need would be. And I also just wanted to thank you, Mr. Williams, and your staff for your continued support of our residents at Crescent Halls as they're undergoing relocation. Thank you.
Okay, and if anybody else has a question or comment for our panelists, this would be the time to click your raise hand icon. And I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, Kyle, to end the session.
All right, Joe, if no one has any further comments, I would like to now share my screen and redirect your attention to some important resources that we have for you guys post-meeting. If you go to our website, catchthecat.org, you'll land on this page and see a web banner here. Click here to learn more about CAT's proposed route changes. And here we feature a story map, which was created by Jim and his team over at Kinetics. It's very immersive and interactive. It gives you a brief description of the changes. You get to see what the system was like, or what is the system is currently like, and how the changes will affect our system. But most importantly, at the end, but you do have an option to where you can select any of the routes that we have went over today. You can see these displayed here, and you can give feedback. And we will use this as we move forward and make this valuable. And we really, really appreciate you guys being here with us today. So without further ado, I will conclude the meeting. Thank you guys for participating. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.